Megan! I just binge-watched all the live TV musicals from the past 5 years. Oh, it was wonderful. Rent, The Wiz, Grease, Hairspray. There were so many. You can't stop the beat. Ever since you first saw the light.
Yeah, that's great, Gerald. Gotta admit, I had a little crush on Allison Williams as Peter Pan.
And guess what? I heard that the next live TV musical event is going to be hair. And if there's anyone who knows hair, it's a fuzzy green monster. Like me.
Aw, buddy. NBC canceled Hair Live.
What? Why?
Ugh, I imagine the creatives finally looked at the song list and realized they couldn't work with titles like Hashish, White Boys, Black Boys, and
Okay, so there's no live TV musicals scheduled at all for the next year?
I know, and it seems like they were everywhere the last few years.
Well, you know how these TV movie musical trends go. One minute you're riding high with Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother. Next you sink into new lows with Matthew Broderick as Harold Hill. Ugh.
Huh?
Oh, Megan, come on, you remember. The TV movie musical trend of the mid-90s?
Oh my God, I thought it was a collective fever dream. I knew I hadn't imagined Drew Carey as Geppetto.
What? Well, come on, galleys. I need my TV movie musical fix. Give me the show tunes. I want them. Gimme.
Gerald.
Gimme.
Okay, Gerald. If we're gonna do this, though, we're gonna turn this into a musical theater lesson for you. Agreed?
You said Whitney Houston as fairy godmother. I am in.
But Gerald, we have to start from the very beginning. A very good place to start. Emily! Now is not the time. Before we get to fairy godmothers, plucky orphans, and Matthew Broderick, we need to get to the time before ABC was claimed by the House of Mouse.
Was there ever such a time?
Yes, Gerald. And back in 1995, the American Broadcasting Company decided to take a chance on one of America's most beloved musicals. Hi, Emily. Hi, Megan. What's the story? Morning Glory. What's a tale? Nightingale. It's the ABC Musical Madness.
Stealing focus.
Greetings, Broadway babies. I'm Emily.
And I'm Gerald.
And welcome to our Stealing Focus ABC Musical Madness Retrospective. This is the mini-series that reviews the ABC TV movie musicals of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Each episode will feature our thoughts, including what works and what doesn't, but also focusing on how the TV movie fares as an adaptation and going into the history of the musical itself.
And each episode is going to feature a very special guest star. And for episode 1, we have the lovely and talented Meghan Allison!
Yay! Megan, would you like to introduce our first ABC musical?
I sure would, Gerald. We start in 1995 with the adaptation of the high school staple, Bye Bye Birdie. Bye Bye Birdie opened on Broadway in 1960 with music by Charles Strauss, lyrics by Lee Adams, and a book by Michael Stewart. It originally starred Broadway dancing diva Cheetah Rivera, master of the center square Paul Lynde, and a guy we'd never hear from again, Dick Van Dyke.
It was nominated for 8 Tony Awards, winning 4, including Best Director for Gower Champion and Best Musical. There have been multiple Broadway revivals over the years, and Birdie has been a staple of educational theater productions from middle school through college.
Bye Bye Birdie takes place in 1958 and tells the story of Conrad Birdie, an Elvis Presley-esque rock star who has recently been drafted into the Army. So Birdie's songwriter Albert Peterson and his long-suffering girlfriend/secretary Rosie Alvarez come up with a plan to send Birdie off with a publicity stunt, leaving Albert free to quit his songwriting gig and settle down with Rosie.
They select Kim McAfee, a teenage fan in the small town of Sweet Apple, Ohio, to kiss Birdie on the Ed Sullivan Show for his final performance before going into the Army.
Birdie, Rosie, Albert, and Albert's overbearing mother, May, all descend on Sweet Apple, where the teens are positively apoplectic with a pop idol in their midst, while the parents are decidedly skeptical of this rock and/or roll fad. Shenanigans ensue.
In 1963, Bye Bye Birdie was adapted into a film with Dick Van Dyke and Paul Lynde reprising their roles. While the 63 film starts off strong, it slowly devolves into utter madness, completely leaving the original plot behind. Let's just say there was this whole subplot about the Russians trying to bump Birdie off the Sullivan Show for Cold War reasons.
Anyway, Bye Bye Birdie didn't set out to capture the time period in which it's set, but the show would come to define the 50s. By 1958, rock and roll had overtaken Broadway as America's most popular form of music.
The image of the screaming teenage fan is nothing new to us these days, but back then it was unlike anything parents had ever seen before. Kids were screeching and flailing at rock concerts like they were possessed by demons.
When really they were just horny.
While Bye Bye Birdie showcases what was different about the late 50s, it also shows us that some things never change. Teenagers will gossip with their friends for hours on the telephone.
Or smartphone.
Or Twitter. Twitter's getting really young these days.
And parents will always not get the music the young people are into.
Kids today with their Taylor Swift and their Ariana Grande.
In my day, it was Gwen Stefani who put Rodgers and Hammerstein into their bops.
Which leads us to the timeless score. Songs like The Telephone Hour, Kids, Put on a Happy Face, and One Boy are all classics that still resonate today.
Even the songs you need a little more context for are great. For example, The Ed Sullivan Show was the biggest show on television in the 1950s. Full stop. I honestly don't know if we even have an equivalent today.
Yeah, maybe SNL or Monday Night Football.
Everybody watched Ed Sullivan, so when the McAfee family is promised to appear on the show, they all sang Hymn for a Sunday Evening, like an angelic choir that would have made Handel proud.
I have to admit, though, the moments that really exemplify the 1950s are my favorite. Like, the whole show. Rosie is frustrated that Albert won't give up the songwriting gig and follow his dream of becoming an English teacher.
Yup. Our boy Albert has a lucrative career writing songs for a world-famous pop icon. In 2019, he'd be living in LA and collaborating with Sia or something.
But this is the 1950s here, people. This rock and roll fad is gonna pass any minute. Besides, the lyricism of rock songs is beneath you, Albert. After all, a man who's got his masters is really someone.
Rosie's I Want song, An English Teacher, really encapsulates what a successful man in the 50s is. As opposed to today.
So, how did Bye Bye Birdie finally get its much-deserved TV adaptation?
Well, like all great art, Gerald, the filmmakers were simply hopping on a trend. In 1993, CBS took a chance on a TV movie version of Gypsy, starring Bette Midler. It was a complete success all around, and ABC was looking to capitalize.
Just a couple of years later, ABC premiered Bye Bye Birdie on December 3rd, 1995. Disney would acquire the network a mere 5 months after, but we'll get into that in the next episode.
Directed by Gene Saks, with choreography by the legendary Anne Reinking, this version of Birdie starred Jason Alexander as Albert, Vanessa Williams as Rosie, China Hold On for One More Day Phillips as Kim, Tyne Daly as May, George Wendt as Mr. McAfee, and Broadway veteran Mark Kudish as Conrad Birdie. He gets an introducing credit in everything.
Mark Kudish, or the Coods as we like to call him, was coming fresh off the 1990 national tour, which was probably the biggest inspiration for this adaptation. Side note, that 1990 cast was insane.
Tommy Tune as Albert, Anne Reinking as Rosie.
Susan Egan as Kim, Steve Zahn as Kim's boyfriend Hugo?
Not to mention as Conrad Birdie.
The Coods! Okay, so how does the 95 Bye Bye Birdie stack up as a TV, movie, musical event?
For it's a fine, upstanding, patriotic, healthy, normal, good adaptation. Unlike the 1963 version, this Bye Bye Birdie sticks very close to the source material. All the beats are hit in the correct order, and while there are some new songs and scenes, well, they mostly add to the story.
My favorite addition is the title song, originally from the 1963 film. It's utilized to great effect in this version, with the Sweet Apple teens sitting at the malt shop and singing in beautiful harmony about what they would say to Birdie if they met him.
This sequence really showcases Anne Reinking's choreography, particularly how much she was influenced by Bob Fosse. Ranking has essentially been the torchbearer of Fosse's style since he died.
And the ranking Fosse technique is apparent throughout. Choreographing things like eyeball moves and finger wags and head bobs is just so Fosse. And it's neat to notice things like the teen dancing clump in A Lot of Livin' to Do, which would be repeated multiple times in Ranking's choreography, most notably in the '98 revival of Chicago.
We mentioned that Chita Rivera, a Broadway triple threat who was no stranger to Fosse musicals, played the original Rosie, which is why her character has tons of dancey moments throughout the show.
The famous Shriner Ballet is infused with Ranking's style. In fact, there are moments when you could picture Anne dancing it herself. Vanessa Williams does a fantastic job, though.
Speaking of Vanessa, she is just as beautiful, charming, and talented as you can imagine here. Even if her Spanish accent leaves a lot to be desired.
Cuánto la gusta.
Wait a minute, I think I hear her voice. Could you put her on the phone, please?
Cuánto la gusta, la gusta, la
Mama
gusta.
Miranda.
Really, we had no Latina actors who could pull this off, ABC?
There are a few scattered moments throughout the film where you really feel the 90s influence, by the way. Usually after one boy, Rosie sings a little reprise, but in this version, they wrote the most mid-90s Vanessa Williams song ever called Let's Settle Down.
Yeah, they might as well have titled it Save the Best for the Colors of the Wind.
Plus, remember that teen dance pile I mentioned? Boy oh boy, does it get some weird mid-90s underscoring.
Someone nice to cuddle up to.
Going back to the new stuff, Jason Alexander gets a song called Talk to Me, which was cut from the original Broadway version, but added into future revivals. It's pretty enough. Has some nice 1950s doo-wop harmonies.
And the song A Giant Step, added to the 1990 national tour, was also placed in the film. It works in the story and is a showcase for Jason Alexander's ample musical comedy skills.
It's also worth noting that the original songwriting team of Strauss and Adams are responsible for all the new songs, which is why they gel so well in the score.
Except for the Vanessa Williams Dentist Office Jam.
True. What Did I Ever See in Him, the triumphant Who Needs Men anthem of the second act, is given an unnecessary reprise for Albert, though.
This rubs me the wrong way, though, this both sidesing of the breakup. Let me set this up for you. Albert's mother brings this gal she met on a freaking bus, Gloria Rasputin, over to basically seduce Albert under the pretense of making her his new secretary. And he goes along with it, right in front of Rosie.
I know Vicki Lewis is great and all, Jason, but have you seen your girlfriend? She is literally Vanessa Williams.
Now, it's not totally his fault, as this scene is from the original stage version. However, giving Albert a What Did I Ever See in Her reprise makes the whole thing ickier than it already was.
Imagine seeing your partner of 8 years being flirted with by a total stranger while his mother hovers nearby. Like, that is some Norman Bates level shit right there.
Ugh. And oddly enough, this leads me to my next critique. There are a lot of directors who don't get some of what Bye Bye Birdie is about, and it all ties into the casting. So let's talk about China. Okay, so this isn't her fault, but China Phillips is way too old to be playing a 16 or 17-year-old. She was 27 when they filmed this. And this is nothing new to productions of Bye Bye Birdie, by the way. Anne Margaret was 22 when she played the role.
But looked and acted like she was 32.
And it makes sense. Casting adults is always easier than casting children, but some of the jokes are lost in translation when you have someone who reads as an adult. Kim is a teenager in high school. She's just been pinned by her steady, and in the first scene, she sings a song called How Lovely to Be a Woman. Now, the intention of the song is humorous. Kim is 16, and she thinks she knows what being an adult is now that she has a boyfriend. And it's nonsense. She sings about wearing lipstick and heels and staying out till after 10 while getting her tomboyish comfy clothes.
On stage, this comes across as cute and funny. Of course she doesn't know what it's like to be a grown-up, though. I mean, that's the eternal struggle with kids today, am I right?
Yeah, but with China looking 27...
And that comes across as a sexy sexpot striptease.
Yeah, the joke is completely lost. And the Anne Margaret version is no different, by the way. In fact, it's kind of worse because Anne Margaret loves to do that weird sexy baby talk thing.
Ugh. Oh, I think I see what you're talking about. Let's take a look at One Boy, Kim's reassuring love song to Hugo. Oh wow, Hugo looks really old too.
Oh, China, look at that vein. Oh, what is this?
Just two grown-ass adults acting like children singing doofy love songs.
It's Mamma Mia all over again.
Oh, before I forget, the acoustic intro to One Boy is actually really lovely, but it's funny how the ambient sound completely disappears once the song starts.
A steady is forever. One boy.
Ah, TV movies.
I love the clips that last a little too long because you know they used to go to a commercial break.
But going back to Hugo, there's a scene where he's trying to drink his sorrows away at a bar, but gets thrown out because he's obviously underage.
How old are you?
32.
Get out of here.
Yes, you look like you are 32. Give that man a drink.
There are plenty of actors throughout the film who are obviously adults but look young though. The actor playing Ursula, Brigitte Dow, is all around delightful and she looks like a teenager.
So there's this really creepy scene near the end where Conrad takes Kim to the ice house, aka the primo makeout spot. They smoke weed and Conrad, an actual adult, tries to seduce
Assault.
Kim. And it's supposed to be scary. Kim realizes she's not an adult at all and she's in way over her head. It's essentially her character arc. But in this version, China just seems like she doesn't want to cheat on Hugo, which, okay, fair enough, but it's supposed to be so much worse.
From his first appearance in the song, A Healthy Normal American Boy, a great commentary on publicity and the power of spin, by the way, we learn that Conrad is actually kind of a dick. But in this version, you almost sympathize with him when those randy teens appear.
There's also this great joke where Ursula screams, "Let's have an orgy!" But they turn the volume down on that for this one. Guess it wasn't an ideal joke for the ABC primetime spot. Which is ironic because, dear God, those children are going to eat him alive.
Yeah, thanks to Ranking's choreography, the sexuality is up to 11. Honestly, Sincere has always ended with Birdie standing triumphant with the rest of the crowd fainted, but this looks like a faith healing revival. Look at those teens undulate and twitch.
I still think Hugo's version is funnier though.
When I sing about a tree, I really feel that tree.
But really, even with some of the questionable casting and directing choices, there's still a lot to love. The Telephone Hour is still practically a perfect song that the kids always relate to.
And it is the first time I've seen the majority of it performed with the kids dancing around telephone booths, another testament to Ranking's creativity.
Put on a Happy Face has never really been important to the plot, but I simply cannot imagine the show without it. Jason Alexander is at his best here, and he rocks those dance moves like the seasoned pro he is.
Tyne Daly is perfect as the ultimate pushy, overbearing mother. Oh, fun fact, Tyne Daly played the lead in the revival of Gypsy on Broadway only 6 years before this.
Yeah, because there are definitely moments where you can feel her busting out the Mama Rose. Also, she comes out of a pond in one scene. Okay, it's a choice.
George Wendt as Mr. McAfee is kinda underwhelming. Honestly, he seems winded a lot. His rendition of Kids has nowhere near the desperate, frantic energy of Paul Lynde.
I didn't know what puberty was until I was almost past it.
But it's the end of the show that really tugs at my heartstrings. Albert sends Birdie and his mother off, and then he and Rosie reunite at the train station.
Yes, apparently when you're a man in your late 30s, you could just give up your lucrative career as a pop songwriter to become a junior high English teacher in Pumpkin Falls, Iowa.
I wonder if he even has a teaching credential.
Gerald, his penis is the teaching credential.
And we end not with a big flashy ensemble reprise, but a simple duet between our two leads. They do a little Fred and Ginger style soft shoe, kiss, fade to black. And that's the end of Bye Bye Birdie.
Bye Bye Birdie 95 was the living end, Daddy-O. We definitely recommend checking it out.
It's miles ahead of the 1963 version, especially in terms of adaptation. And if you can look past some questionable casting choices, you'll be thoroughly rewarded.
And obsessing over those Anne Ranking dance moves.
Yeah. Do you ever think they'll do a live version of Bye Bye Birdie, Megan?
Well, NBC was in talks with Jennifer Lopez to do Bye Bye Birdie live, but because of scheduling conflicts, it hasn't happened yet, so who knows? Maybe sometime.
Oh, and Gerald, we're only at the beginning of our ABC musical madness. Our next episode takes us to the world of Rodgers and Hammerstein and the very first Black Disney princess.
You mean?
Impossible. Things are happening every day.
Whitney!
Stealing focus.
Hello, everyone out there in YouTube land. We have a Patreon now. So if you want to help us produce this kind of content and more, get on there and contribute.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that bell for notifications to get everything Stealing Focus.
Thanks so much for following us. We love you all.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.